Chapter 3. Polybius. Sunday, November 1st, 1981. Sunday mornings were Velia's favorite time of the week since her mom always slept in, allowing her to eat cereal and watch television in peace. Operating on muscle memory, she went through her weekend ritual, pouring a bowl of banana frosted flakes from a bright yellow box while captivated by an episode of Black Star. Just as she placed the first bite of breakfast in her mouth, the broadcast was interrupted by a public service announcement from the United States Metric Board about the upcoming conversion of America's measurement system. Velia hated commercials, but she especially hated these government PSAs. "Good morning," Janice beamed as she entered the kitchen. Velia dropped her spoon into the bowl and scowled to herself. "I'm heading downtown in a bit. Want to ride to work?" "Sure." Velia retrieved her spoon and continued eating. Janice poured a steaming cup of joe from their Mr. Coffee machine as a commercial for the product played on the TV. "Look at that." Janice tipped her cup. "Coincidence," Velia replied through a mouthful of food. "There's no such thing as coincidence," Janice advised, heading for the kitchen door. "I have to get dressed. Be ready in 15. Velia ate quickly so she could focus on every second of John Blackstar's space adventures before Janice returned. "Your mom's not up?" "I guess not." "Do you want to say goodbye?" "No time," Velia declared, grabbing her acid-washed denim jacket and her new book before heading out to the family's VW Beetle. According to her mother's lore, she'd picked Velia's name so her initials would match those of her beloved first and only motor vehicle. The patter of the rear-mounted engine was the sole sound on their drive. Janice was comfortable with silence, but Velia cracked, turning on the radio. A female voice was talking about crop circles in the southern hemisphere and their similarity to the Trans-en-Provence UFO sighting in France earlier that year. "I saw an alien ship once," Janice interjected. Velia turned in her seat. "What?" "Yeah, when I was running supplies in Vietnam. A silver craft paralleled my movements from a mile away. I could see it as clear as day." "You sure it wasn't another plane?" "It was shaped like a sphere and shot into the upper atmosphere in an instant. I'd never seen a plane do anything like that before." Velia turned off the radio. "What's Parallel Lives about?" Velia looked at the book in her lap. "It presents pairs of famous Romans and Greeks who had some common theme in their lives or personalities." "Sounds interesting." Janice offered a supportive smile. "Who's your favorite?" "Probably Romulus. That's a tough question, but my favorite pairing is Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great. I prefer the Romans to the Greeks." "Are any of the lives about women?" "No," Velia replied. Sensing Janice's dissatisfaction with the answer, she continued. "The stories focus on moral lessons about life, so there are important women featured, for good or bad, but they're in the background and secondary to the stories." "Yes," Velia confirmed as they pulled up to the red and white single-story Malibu Grand Prix Family Fun Center. Velia preempted the feminism lecture and jumped from the parked car. "Thanks for the lift!" Velia loved everything about working here. Her boss was great, she got to repair games, she ate as much popcorn as her stomach could hold, and she was free to watch the recently launched music television channel until her eyes bled. "Hi, Kevin," Velia said, approaching the register. His sun-leathered face was buried in a newspaper. He didn't look up to greet her, which meant he was deep in contemplation. "What are you reading?" Velia leaned against the counter, pulling the paper down to reveal his smile of perfect teeth. His short black hair was receding daily. "Arcades will save my business," Kevin exclaimed. "They're projecting a 500% increase in the video game market over the next few years. It's already a $5 billion industry." "It was smart to install all these machines then," Velia said with a grin. "Tempest is out again." Kevin nodded toward the back corner of the arcade. "Think you can fix it before we open in 20? "I'll give it my best, boss." Velia bounced to the back office and grabbed her tool bag before moving behind the gaming cabinet. After cutting the power, she opened the rear access door. Everything looked fine. She was about to hit the reset switch when she noticed a rogue cable running from the transformer to the monitor cavity. Velia shuffled around to the front of the machine and swung the coin door open. She buried one arm up to the shoulder in the cabinet's belly to pop a pair of access latches, freeing the control panel, which smacked her head. Shit! She knew that'd happen. After removing the bezel, she fished behind the CRT monitor until catching her hand on the unexpected cable. She slid her fingers along its Duraclad shielding to the wire's terminus, a pin-sized piece of shaped glass sealed in plastic heat shrink wrap wedged between the wooden cabinet and the gaming screen. "Hey, Kevin!" Velia shouted. "Yeah," he answered, still enamored by the promises of his prophetic paper. "Come look at this!" The pair stared at the out-of-place artifact, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Neither had an answer. "What is this?" Kevin asked. "It looks like a lens." "Beds. What does that mean?" Velia whispered. "The damn FBI, that's what." Kevin fumed. There were rumors they'd been hiding cameras in arcades around town for years. I guess it wasn't just a conspiracy theory. Why would they do that? They think video games are a way around gambling laws. You're too young to remember this, but not long ago they were seizing and destroying pinball machines for the same reason. I've never seen a camera this small, Velia vacillated. Is this why the game stopped working? Velia went around the back of the cabinet, yanked the other end of the cable loose from the transistor, and plugged in the machine. The arcade booted up like normal. Kevin grinned. Looks like that did the trick. Velia pulled the rest of the cable free from the cabinet, rolled it up, and placed it in her pocket. If it was a camera, it didn't connect to anything other than the power supply. She was reassembling Tempest when she noticed a new addition to the arcade a few machines down the lane. What game is that? Kevin spun in place. Polybius. It came in yesterday. I ordered Stargate, but that showed up instead. Are we good to open now? Sure thing, boss. For the remainder of the afternoon, kid after kid amassed around the new arcade. No one even bothered to play her recently repaired Tempest, despite it being a fan favorite. The mass of young bodies made it nearly impossible to see the gameplay on Polybius' screen. But from the fragments she observed, it was a fast-paced shooter with bright colors and even louder sounds. She was so fascinated by people watching that she lost track of time. Are you trying to milk the clock? Kevin asked. Oh, God! Velia grabbed her jacket but forgot her book before racing out the front door and down the street in time to see the only bus home pulling away. She couldn't ask Kevin for a ride. He still had hours of work to do. And she didn't want to call her mom since that'd end with a lecture about personal responsibility. Out of other options, she donned her jacket and began the long walk home. Velia fished the mysterious cable from her pocket and fidgeted with its tiny lens while walking the back roads of a suburban neighborhood. She was so captivated with the anomalous object that she failed to notice an old dark brown van creeping alongside her. The paint was chipped, and the body was covered in an uncountable number of gashes, dents, and dings. Need a ride? Said a strong male voice. Velia looked up to see a man in his mid-40s. He was handsome, with a 5 o'clock shadow and an alluring smile. His Dodge van had tiny teardrop-shaped windows toward the rear of the vehicle. No thanks. Velia shuddered. You sure? This isn't the best neighborhood. Velia's intuition was telling her to run, but that's what a small person would do, so she stood her ground. Fuck off, creeper. Do you kiss your mother with that mouth? The man asked. Velia looked straight ahead and started walking again, but the van continued to crawl alongside her. She noticed its Utah license plate as the vehicle stopped moving in her peripheral vision. The sound of him climbing from the van trumped her ego, and she chucked the cable before sprinting away. She heard large steps closing in, which drove her forward at a faster pace. When her lungs felt like they'd filled with battery acid, she finally dared to look back. She was alone. It took the rest of the walk home to calm her nerves. Her adrenaline received a second life when she entered her house, more than an hour late to meet the fury of her mother. Oh, thank God! Linda bellowed, running to embrace her daughter. Janice was standing a few feet away, with relief written across her face. Where have you been? Her mother demanded. I missed the bus and had to walk home. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? Linda shrieked. Do you understand how frantic we've been? You should have called us for a ride. I'm not a kid anymore. Though more than 24 hours had elapsed since their fight, they found themselves back in the same ideological spot. You are my child, Linda screamed. You will not decide the rules of our home. I told you this job was too far away, but you insisted it wouldn't be an issue. Tomorrow, after school, we're going down there so you can tell Kevin you're quitting. Velia stormed off to the sanctity of her bedroom. Each time her mother pounded on the door, the particle board flexed like it'd break. Velia sat on her bed, secured a large set of headphones over her ears, and blasted more stars on the record player. Janice had brought this album back after a flight to Europe. She stood and paced the room, but her auditory tether kept her from wandering too far in both physical and mental space from the present. One thought kept replaying. She wasn't quitting her job, no matter what her mom said. Velia wasn't the type of person to give up easily, especially when it involved something she loved. She was stronger than that, even if her mother couldn't see it.